This is the Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi and continuing coverage of the case against Bryan Kohberger.
Lots of things happening in the case against Bryan Kohberger. We're going to get you caught up on all of the developments basically in the last week or so, about June 17th forward to today, the 25th of June of 2025. Let's start with the headline. This was one of the most important weeks in months for the Bryan Kohberger case. No flashy headlines, no viral TikToks, but a ton of movement behind the scenes that will be shaping the path to this trial. And we're going to break it all down for you right here. And before we do, let me remind you, please hit subscribe wherever you're listening to us, whatever podcast platform it may be. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit subscribe there too. Really helps us grow the channel. And then you can participate in all the stuff we got going on here, all the conversations, because I want to hear your comments on this case in this video. Please do check that out. And I might note now, if you want access to our videos in advance, you'll get stuff like up to a week in advance. We put all different pieces out and all scheduled a little bit in advance unless it's breaking. But there's all sorts of stuff you get well in advance and other perks. You can support us on YouTube as a subscriber. You can join us as one now. So do check that out on the YouTube channel and get access to some of our extra content well before anyone else. As we make it, you get it. Okay, continuing on with this. So, June 18th, let's go back there. Major pretrial hearing. Kohberger's defense team appeared in court for that critical hearing to argue their motion to delay the August 2025 trial. Ann Taylor, Kohberger's lead public defender, made her case. They're overwhelmed by the avalanche of last-minute discovery from the prosecution and haven't finished forensic testing. And this is a key part. They haven't been able to get full cooperation, they claim, from several key witnesses, especially in Pennsylvania. She painted a picture of a team buried under late-breaking evidence and procedural stonewalls, unable to prepare an effective capital defense. That was what she was saying. And what we're going to do now is break everything down, that and more, into what happened here this week, what it means, and what's coming up next, or what we're going to start calling what? I don't know how you're going to say it. What was in a rap song? What? I don't remember which one it was. I can hear it in my head. Anyway, the prosecution led by Ladau County Prosecutor Bill Thompson and also Special Prosecutor Josh Hurwitz wasn't buying any of it. Their argument: the defense has had well over a year to prepare. They've had access to full forensic files, interviews, phone data, and DNA analysis since mid-2023, and delaying any further would set a dangerous precedent of perpetual continuance. Hurwitz said the state is ready now and implied that these last-minute complaints are more about strategy rather than real barriers. Judge Stephen Hippler didn't immediately rule, but he leaned heavily towards keeping the trial on track. His exact words: both parties should continue planning and preparing as if the trial will be proceeding on its scheduled date. Translation: don't bank on a delay. The judicial patience for extensions may have run out. Then we have the alternate suspect filing that went in. A sealed curveball. June 18th is when this one went down. In a closed-door session, Kohberger's defense team submitted a sealed filing alleging that another individual or individuals might be responsible for the murders. They reportedly discovered a tip or a set of evidence pointing to an alternate suspect. They wanted permission to present this theory to the jury. Judge Hippler, again, didn't rule immediately, but in prior hearings, he made it clear you need more than a rumor to meet the legal threshold. The defense must show that this new theory is both specific and credible, not just speculative. If the judge finds their evidence weak, it will be excluded entirely from the trial. This alternate suspect strategy could backfire. The court is already viewing the move with suspicion. And unless it introduces real doubt, think DNA, verified timelines, or a confession, it could weaken the defense's credibility with the jury before opening statements even begin. And new Pennsylvania witnesses have been revealed. This happened on June 24th. Another bomb quietly dropped. The defense subpoenaed 2 more witnesses from Pennsylvania, bringing the total to 7 out of the state witnesses linked to Kohberger's pre-extradition custody and background. One of those witnesses is reportedly a corrections officer who interacted with Kohberger after his arrest at his parents' home in December of 2022. The officers include individuals who may have known him personally or interacted with him during his brief detention in Pennsylvania before extradition to Idaho. All 7 are scheduled for a hearing next week to determine whether they'll be legally compelled to appear in Idaho for that trial. It signals that Kohberger's team is trying to build a narrative of his post-arrest behavior, possibly to suggest innocence, stability, or a lack of guilt, indicators like confessions, erratic conduct, or violent tendencies while in custody. It's a lot of places it could go. And it's important to note the prosecution did not object to the hearing, which suggests they are also preparing to cross-examine these individuals thoroughly. And there's also the leak fallout and special prosecutors' requests. Let's not forget the elephant still in the courtroom, the Dateline NBC episode that aired in May and revealed previously sealed evidence, including photos, timelines, and forensic details never before made public. Kohberger's team filed a motion to appoint a special prosecutor or independent investigator to determine who violated the gag order and leaked the materials to the press. The prosecution filed a sealed response, and the judge is now reviewing both motions. A ruling is expected soon, and if granted, it could lead to subpoenas, contempt proceedings, and possible sanctions, especially if it's discovered that someone on either side leaked confidential discovery to the media. It's not just prosecutorial as a procedure. It's not just a procedural issue. It's a potential explosive credibility fight before trial. So what does all of that happen mean? Well, what it means is the August trial is still very much alive. Despite the defense's claim of unpreparedness, Judge Hippler is clearly losing patience. He instructed both sides to keep moving forward as if the trial is happening on time. And that's no idle comment. The court has worked overtime to accommodate a case involving more than 20 terabytes of digital evidence, dozens of witnesses, expert testimony, and a potential death penalty phase. So barring a procedural breakdown, jury selection is still on track for late July, with opening arguments likely in early to mid-August of 2025. What about that alternate suspect strategy? It's risky. If Kohberger's team can't clear the evidentiary bar, the theory won't be allowed in court, and it'll signal to the jury that the defense has no other compelling narrative beyond poking holes in the prosecution's case. If, however, they do clear the bar and the court allows this other suspect theory in, even partially, it gives them something more concrete to work with during the trial. But as of now, it's a gamble that could weaken them more than it helps. And there's the new witness that might shape jury perception, calling corrections officers and Pennsylvania locals to testify about Kohberger's behavior after his arrest is likely an attempt to show normalcy. In other words, he wasn't violent. He didn't confess. He behaved logically and rationally. But this tactic has its limits. Jurors won't base a verdict on a post-arrest manners. If anything, prosecutors could argue that a cold, calculated killer wouldn't break down in jail anyway. Still, these witnesses could affect the sentencing phase if the trial reaches a guilty verdict and moves into the death penalty deliberation. The leak investigation? What does that mean? That could rock the courtroom if the judge finds evidence that someone close to the case, law enforcement, prosecution, or even the defense violated the gag order. Repercussions will follow. We're talking possible contempt charges, mistrial motions, or even limits on what the press can access going forward. It also erodes public trust when the case this high profile starts leaking sealed evidence to the media. It creates a circus atmosphere that undercuts the integrity of the process. If Kohberger's team can't delay the trial, they may use this as another angle to claim a jury pool has been tainted beyond repair. So, what is next? Rulings. Well, they're going to be coming any day now. Judge Hiffler will issue a written decision on the motion to delay the trial. It may even be out by the time you're seeing this. He'll also rule on whether the defense's alternate suspect theory is admissible, and we're still waiting on whether the court will appoint a special prosecutor to investigate the Dateline media leak. There's a witness compulsion hearing that's coming up. Court will decide if 7 Pennsylvania witnesses must travel to Idaho to testify. If approved, expect their testimony to appear early in the trial, likely to set the tone about Kohberger's mental and emotional state post-arrest. And the forensic and pretrial motions will continue. Both sides are finalizing pretrial motions on admissibility of DNA evidence, expert testimony parameters, and witness limitations. A forensic rebuttal witness may be introduced by the defense, challenging the state's use of touch DNA on the knife sheath. Just isn't legal. It's not a legal chess match anymore. It is getting into psychological warfare here. At the last minute, the defense is trying to muddy the waters. Alternate suspects, witness delays, leak allegations. Prosecution is done playing nice, and the judge is showing signs that the court will not be held hostage by stalling tactics or media circus antics. Bryan Kohberger, for his part, remains expressionless, silent, cold, and distant, even as the walls close in, allegedly. The next few weeks will determine whether this case moves forward at full speed or hits the kind of procedural pothole that derails trials for months or years. But for now, the path to August is still clear and getting hotter by the day. In the comments section, tell me what you think of those developments in the case against Bryan Kohberger. Love to hear him on YouTube. And if you're listening to the podcast, press subscribe on that platform and check out our YouTube channel. Just search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. You'll find it. And there you can comment on all the stuff. You can watch the show. You can even get advanced episodes of the show when you subscribe on YouTube and become a member. You know, a little premium section over there that you can get access on with the video on YouTube. So do check that out. Curious to hear what you guys think about where all this is standing in the case of Bryan Kohberger. What is going on with the DoorDash driver in the case of Bryan Kohberger and the Idaho 4 murders? More questions are being asked than answers are being given. Today, we are going to look at what happened, what it means, and what's next in the case of Bryan Kohberger and the DoorDash driver. I'm Tony Bruschi. Thanks for joining us. Please, before we get into what happened, hit subscribe wherever you are watching this so you don't miss any of our content that we put out for you every single day on this case and the many cases we cover for you here at True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, in the comments section, let us know what you think of this piece of the case. We're going to go into what is going on here. What happened? Why are so many people talking about this DoorDash driver? Well, let's break it down. The night of the murders and the DoorDash delivery in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. Those four University of Idaho students, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez, were tragically stabbed to death in their off-campus home minutes before the killings unfolded. At precisely around 4 a.m., Xana Kernodle received a routine DoorDash delivery from Jack in the Box, delivered by a local woman known only publicly as MM. At the time, the DoorDash driver's involvement seemed minimal, providing only a timestamp to investigators that would become pivotal in reconstructing the precise sequence of events leading up to the murders. Police documents initially cited this delivery solely as timeline confirmation, with no mention or suspicious vehicles, or no mention of suspicious vehicles or persons observed by the driver. And that is key, because our memories do not improve with time. Our memories have to be recalled every time we want to bring them back up. It is not a videotape and you're just playing it back. That's how you can get false memories. That's how you can get things in memories that the rest is real, but that part might not be. All I'm saying is, if she saw him in that car that night, I think that might have been something she would have brought up to the police when questioned. I would think. Although I've said in another episode, what if she just really didn't want to get involved? She'd already gone through so much trauma. And now this. I could see someone saying, didn't see anything, just to get them away. Or did she say something and we just don't know about it? It is one of those things where it is sealed up. It's another question we just don't truly know the full answer to yet. For months, the driver's role appeared to be nothing more than a tragic coincidence, an everyday food delivery overshadowed by the subsequent horror that unfolded inside that house. The DoorDash driver's recent shocking revelation on body cam footage is what everyone is talking about. And it's a revelation to the general public, but is it a revelation to the case itself? That is something we truly do not know the answer to. That could be sealed. To nearly 2 years later, in June of 25, just if you're listening to this or watching this right when we're making it, it's still June of 25. Explosive new information surfaced from old body cam footage recorded during a completely unrelated traffic stop in Pullman, Washington. That was on the night of September 4th, 2024. Police pulled the DoorDash driver over on suspicion of impaired driving due to alleged prescription drug use. As the officer interacted with her, the clearly distressed woman spontaneously began discussing her involvement in the Kohberger case. She explicitly stated multiple times and with visible anxiety that she would be testifying in the big murder case, directly referencing the infamous Idaho murders. Then came the bombshell. "I saw Bryan there. I parked right next to him," she insisted. She repeated this detail, stressing it multiple times on the body cam footage, emphasizing both her direct visual identification of Bryan Kohberger and the exact placement of her vehicle relative to his. At one point, clearly emotional and visibly shaken, she further explained to the officer that the stress of testifying in such a high-profile case had severely impacted her mental health, contributing to ongoing issues with anxiety and prescription medication. Prior to this body cam footage emerging, there was never any public record or indication that the DoorDash driver claimed to have directly observed Kohberger at or near the scene that night, transforming what initially appeared a minor logistical detail into potentially crucial eyewitness testimony. So why is this new information raising credibility questions? Well, that's a good question. The revelation quickly raised a ton of eyebrows. But why? Why was the crucial eyewitness information only coming out now on body cam footage from an unrelated incident rather than earlier through official channels? It remained unclear whether law enforcement was previously aware of this claim or if this footage represented the driver's first ever disclosure of having spotted Kohberger. The delay in public reporting such a vital detail inevitably cast doubts, raising concerns that perhaps her memory of events has evolved over time due to extended or external influences, particularly widespread media coverage of Kohberger's face and the white Hyundai Elantra associated with him. Defense attorneys could strongly suggest that her identification is the product of hindsight bias, influenced by or contaminated by images of Kohberger prominently featured in news stories, rather than an authentic recollection from that night. The DoorDash driver's personal struggles and legal problems add further complexity. The driver's personal history and recent behavior introduce a lot of potential pitfalls. During the September 2024 incident, when she was pulled over by Pullman police, officers arrested her for allegedly driving under the influence of prescription medication. The video portrays a woman clearly grappling with intense emotional distress, including PTSD related to the violent death of her husband in 2013. She candidly described the pressure and anxiety she was under, specifically citing the stress of testifying in the upcoming murder trial. This arrest and the documented emotional instability have raised understandable concerns regarding her reliability as a witness or how a jury may interpret her. Although personal struggles alone do not discredit testimony, they do provide defense attorneys a compelling narrative to challenge her memory, judgment, and overall credibility when the case eventually goes to trial. So what does all of this mean? Those are the facts. That's what's happened. What does it mean? What could her testimony do? Could it strengthen the prosecution's case? Well, if prosecutors successfully present the DoorDash driver as a credible eyewitness, her testimony could dramatically bolster their case against Kohberger. Eyewitness accounts resonate powerfully with jurors because they offer a direct, humanizing connection to the accused. The driver's statement, explicitly placing Kohberger physically at the scene within minutes of the murders, can significantly enhance circumstantial forensic evidence such as DNA and cell phone data, instead of merely suggesting Kohberger was near the area around the relevant time frame. Prosecutors could directly argue to jurors that he was literally observed by an independent witness moments before committing the crime. Such testimony could greatly enhance the clarity and emotional impact of the prosecution's timeline narrative. So, why the timing of her statements? And how it could damage the prosecution? Well, conversely, if you look at it the other way, the timing and circumstances surrounding the DoorDash driver's claims pose serious credibility issues if indeed it emerges that she did not report seeing Kohberger until well after his arrest and widespread media coverage. The defense could persuasively argue that her identification was retroactively influenced, unintentionally shaped by seeing Kohberger's image repeatedly broadcast as the prime suspect. And I'm not saying she did. I'm not saying she didn't. I don't know the answer to that question. And I don't know that she knows the answer to that question either. I could see how that could work. I was the DoorDash driver, you tell a friend. You were? I mean, did you see him? No, I didn't see him. You can start questioning yourself. Well, did I see him? Maybe I might have seen something. Next person asks, see him? Think I might have. I saw something, and it keeps kind of going. And then eventually you almost inch yourself there. And, you're telling a big piece of a big story to friends. Sometimes people embellish, and then sometimes you say it enough and you believe it. And that happens to anybody. That's nothing special. It's nothing strange. I'm accusing her at all. It's called a false memory. And it can happen that way, or it can just happen because of trauma, or it can happen because of so many different paths that one may take with their brain trying to comprehend what you just went through. Jurors naturally view delayed revelations with suspicion, particularly if there's any indication of evolving memories or external influences shaping recollections over time. And yeah, there's some history there that may be questioned. The driver's documented struggles with anxiety, PTSD, and prescription drug issues introduce further credibility challenges. They just do, and I am not blaming her or saying she's a bad person or anything. Now, I hope she's getting the help that she needs. And it looks like she's been trying, but she's been through a lot. So I wish her all the best. But these are also things that the defense will jump on. Defense may attempt to persuade jurors that these circumstances call her overall reliability into question, arguing that emotional instability or medication use might affect her memory accuracy or the clarity of her observations. Although her mental health struggles are undoubtedly sympathetic, in a court of law, any perceived impairment could negatively impact jurors' perception of her trustworthiness. It is what it is. So, if you haven't pressed subscribe yet, do that. I'm going to talk about what's next here. And if you haven't commented yet on our YouTube channel about this, please, what are your thoughts on this specific issue in this specific case? I'm really curious to see that. So what's next? What's on the horizon here? Well, pretrial hearings to determine the admissibility of her testimony. Before jurors hear her story, expect intense pretrial litigation regarding her testimony. Prosecutors will vigorously seek to exclude prejudicial aspects of her personal history, particularly the arrest for impaired driving and mental health struggles, as irrelevant or overly prejudicial. The defense, conversely, will argue those factors are directly relevant to her credibility and reliability as an eyewitness. It's just going to set the stage for fierce courtroom battles even before the trial officially begins, so buckle up. And high-stakes cross-examination would be anticipated if the driver testifies. Her cross-examination is going to be one of the trial's critical moments. The defense's attorneys will meticulously challenge every aspect of her memory and observations, probing her recollection of events, her mental state at the time of the delivery, and especially the reasons behind her late reporting of seeing Kohberger. Prosecutors, on the other hand, have to carefully guide her testimony, attempting to clarify and contextualize her delayed disclosure to maintain her credibility. Big hurdles. And then the possible clarification of the timelines and the initial statements. What about that? Well, during trial proceedings, we should finally obtain clarity regarding precisely when she initially informed authorities of seeing Kohberger. Till then, it really is anyone's guess. And this is just the time she verbally spilled it and it came out on camera. Probably wasn't even cognizant of that in that moment that she was in. So if at all prior to this newly surfaced video. We'll see if it's been said. If it turns out she reported seeing Kohberger early on, information previously unknown due to the gag order, then prosecutors could significantly rehabilitate her credibility. If, however, she only made these claims after Kohberger's arrest and media coverage intensified, it could profoundly damage the strength of her testimony. So we'll see what she said. And that's going to be under that gag order for probably till the trial. But the trial's not far away. Eyewitness testimony can profoundly sway juries, carrying immense emotional and narrative weight. The DoorDash driver's testimony could become a dramatic courtroom moment, vividly placing Bryan Kohberger at the scene moments before 4 young lives were brutally ended. Yet this same witness carries considerable risk, delayed revelations, complicated personal history, and documented emotional struggles. This is not about questioning Kohberger's guilt, nor does the entire prosecution hinge on this one witness. Yet, how jurors perceive her, whether as a flawed but fundamentally honest citizen or as an unreliable witness, compromised by personal struggles, could subtly shift quite a bit. And their view of the prosecution's overall narrative. The upcoming trial will test whether the prosecution's gamble on her testimony pays off, if they use it, or becomes a significant vulnerability, potentially introducing reasonable doubt into a case that prosecutors have otherwise painstakingly built. Tell me what you think in the comment section on YouTube. I'd love to see it. Again, I'm not saying anything negative about this woman. She has been through a lot. And I can't say how I would be had I been in her shoes for the struggles that she's had in her life and the traumas that she's had. So, my God. And then to have this, just talk about unlucky? I don't know. I mean, it's almost like, God. And this is something, how random as well to be caught up into. So I wish her all the best. So I don't want to say anything negative about the driver. I'm curious what you think about the timing and if it is a false memory, if it is something that just kind of got there, or, she's just finally saying it aloud, or somebody caught it aloud on camera and now it's this and that. It's speculation, but I'm curious. And how she would play as a witness. That's a big thing, because they would exploit her, and it's kind of a gamble. You got someone saying like a really, really important thing about the case, and then they point out all of the struggles that she's been through. That could sway a jury too. Anyway, tell me in the comments what you think. Press subscribe wherever you're downloading podcasts, so you don't miss any of us, any of our stories anywhere. We put tons out every single day, so do that in the podcast world. And then on YouTube, check us out there. Just search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. If you're already there watching, thank you. Hi. And please hit the subscribe button. Judge Summarian in the Bryan Kohberger case has just denied Bryan Kohberger's motion to introduce third-party suspects into his defense. We are going to break down for you what happened, what it means, and what is up next in the trial of Bryan Kohberger. I'm Tony Bruschi. Thanks for joining us. We have this one to break down. We also have the other motion that was denied as well, which we'll have in a separate video. The motion of continuance, which was also denied. There was a slight schedule change in that one, but we're talking a couple days, so nothing too crazy over there. But on to this one. Let's break down what is going on, what happened, and then we'll go into why it matters, so you can help, you can better understand what's going on in this case, especially if you're just starting to follow it as it is heating up. The background and the purpose of the motion here, the state initially filed a motion to remind and prevent Kohberger from introducing any theory about other possible perpetrators unless he met strict evidentiary standards, and that's what they needed to meet. Kohberger responded with an offer of proof. That was what they said, was detailing why he thought 4 individuals might be plausible alternate perpetrators. So what happened here? We're about to find out. The state objected, asserting that these allegations didn't satisfy the legal standard established by Idaho law, specifically under State versus Meister in 2009. Now, what is that one all about? Alternate perpetrator evidence must be clearly relevant, meaning it must directly link another individual to the crime beyond mere suspicion or speculation. Such evidence must help determine the probability of the defendant's guilt or innocence. Courts must exclude any evidence if it poses a significant risk of confusing the jury, unfairly perjuring a party, or unnecessarily wasting the court's time. That's Idaho Rule of Evidence 403. The court's detailed analysis of Kohberger's allegations, here we go. Kohberger attempted to implicate 4 separate individuals as potential alternate perpetrators. The court's decision thoroughly evaluated these claims. Individual grouping, the first 3 individuals, social connections. These were 3 people that had known social ties to one or more of the murder victims. Okay. Continue on. Now, they had the proximity and opportunity. Each lived close enough to walk to the crime scene, and each had attended social gatherings at the victim's residence, implying familiarity with the home's layout. And then the interaction timing. Each person had interacted or socialized with the victims at events just hours before the murders. Okay. What else you got? However, here's where it all changes. Despite these surface-level connections, the court highlighted several critical deficiencies here. There was no motive. Kohberger provided no compelling reason or motive as to why these individuals might have committed the murders. No means or evidence of capability. The offer of proof contained no tangible evidence that any of them had either the physical capability, intent, or access to necessary resources or weapons to commit the crime. And then you have the forensic exclusion. All 3 individuals cooperated fully with law enforcement by giving DNA samples and fingerprints, allowing police to conduct searches of their persons, residence, and belongings, and being conclusively excluded from any forensic evidence found at the crime scene or on the victims. The court specifically noted that none of these individuals drove or had access to a car matching the description of the suspect's vehicle, the Hyundai Elantra. And there's the 4th individual. Minimal connection here on this one. And this is, they're just grasping at straws here. If this is what they're filing, and now we're finally hearing what they filed. This individual had almost no real-life interaction with the victims. His connection was described by the court as merely just passing. Approximately 5 weeks prior to the murders, he noticed one victim shopping in a store. Briefly considered approaching, but never did. He simply exited the store behind her without any actual interaction. Captured on surveillance, this interaction was fully recorded, verifying his claim that there were no direct or indirect interactions with the victim. So you got a guy that saw a cute girl and got shy and nothing happened. Must be the murderer. Thanks, Bryan, for that tip. Cooperation and exclusion on this part. He also fully cooperated with authorities, provided his phone number, and submitted a DNA sample. Laboratory tests conclusively excluded him as a source of any DNA found at the crime scene. So why did the court reject these claims? Well, the court provided extensive reasoning as to why this evidence was inadequate. That's what we're going to go into next. What they shot back was a word: irrelevance. Idaho Rule of Evidence 401. The connections Kohberger offered between these individuals and the crimes were deemed purely speculative. No direct or indirect tangible link to the murders existed. Unfair prejudice and jury confusion. IRE 403. The court concluded that presenting such speculative claims posed a substantial risk of confusing the jury and distracting them from the key issue: Kohberger's guilt or innocence. It would also unfairly prejudice the state by forcing them to defend against unsupported accusations against unrelated individuals. And the no Chambers exception. Kohberger invoked the Chambers v. Mississippi 1973 ruling to argue hearsay and speculative claims might be admissible if they suggested third-party guilt. The court strongly rejected this, clarifying Chambers applies only to exceptionally credible hearsay evidence like confessions by third parties with strong indicators of reliability, not speculative inferences. And there's the speculative blaming precedent, U.S. v. McVeigh. The court cited the Timothy McVeigh Oklahoma City bombing trial, noting the 10th Circuit decision that speculative blaming of other suspects distracts jurors and creates undue confusion. The McVeigh precedent strongly influenced the court's decision here. So, going forward, what's allowed? What's restricted? Well, the judge categorically rejected the presentation of this alternate perpetrator evidence. Some latitude was given to Kohberger. The general critique allowed: Kohberger's team, their defense team, retains the right to challenge and scrutinize the thoroughness and integrity of the police investigation in general terms. They can point out investigative deficiencies or possible oversight of plausible leads. Specific persons are restricted, though. Any attempt to directly implicate a specific individual as an alternate perpetrator during the trial is strictly prohibited unless Kohberger first obtains explicit permission from the judge in a hearing conducted without the jury present. So what's the final order? Well, Judge Stephen Hippler officially denied Kohberger's offer of proof concerning these four alleged alternative perpetrators, citing lack of relevance, speculative nature, forensic exclusion, and significant risks of jury confusion and unfair prejudice. Implications that they've laid out for the defense's strategy. Kohberger's defense can no longer explicitly point to specific alternate suspects during the trial without significant new evidence. Their strategy may shift to broadly attacking the reliability and completeness of the investigation now, rather than implicating specific individuals. But who knows? It's the Kohberger case. The Bryan Kohberger trial is going to go on as planned. The motion to continue has been denied. What happened? What it means, and what's next? That's what we're about to break down right here. I'm Tony Bruschi. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to let us know what you think in the comments section about the motion to continue being denied by Judge Stephen Hippler. Is this the right choice? Is this the wrong choice? Is this the let's get on with the show choice? What's your thoughts? Let us know in the comment section on YouTube. If you're on the podcast platforms, awesome. Thank you. Please hit subscribe right there. If you want to interact, our YouTube platform is the best place to do it in our comment section there. So please do check us out. Just search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi on YouTube to get over there. So let's get into this thing. Judge Stephen Hippler, he is obviously our judge. What's going on here? The motion to continue basically meaning they need more time. We want more time. Kohberger requested the trial be delayed based on three main arguments. Some discovery challenges. They argued an overwhelming amount of discovery made it impossible for defense counsel to review it adequately in time. There was mitigation investigations as well. Claimed that additional time was needed for penalty phase mitigation investigations into Kohberger's life and psychological history. They said they needed this. It was fair. We need to dive deeper because we may need to get a doctor for this or that to prove. And they said, no, you're good. They also cited pretrial publicity. They argued recent and upcoming media coverage prejudiced Kohberger's ability to get a fair trial. There's been a lot. There was a Dateline thing. There's been, basically everything and everyone who talks about this. It is a big deal, but that doesn't mean you can't go to trial. That's kind of come on. You're going to have to go to trial. You can't be like, there's too much media coverage. You're free. Can you imagine if that was a thing? Be like, people be campaigning to media companies. I'll give you be bribing to cover the story more and more. So the state's response to the issue of media coverage, well, they argued the motion was ultimately or very untimely and pretty much lacked sufficient proof that Kohberger's rights would be prejudiced if the trial date remained unchanged. And they said about the, media stuff, trials go on. It will be fine. You've already moved it here. So overall, the court's analysis and decision on this, the discovery review, the Kohberger had argued that extensive discovery hindered that adequate preparation. The court dismissed the claim, noting that the defense previously raised the issue unsuccessfully 2 months prior. Remember that? I know, it seems like it was so long ago. The defense failed to identify what discovery specifically remained unreviewed and why it was important, something the court said, you kind of got to let us know what. You can't just say there's stuff. The court viewed complaints as tactical delay rather than legitimate prejudice. The mitigation evidence investigation that went on, Kohberger claimed further time was needed for comprehensive investigation into his life history to prepare for the penalty phase if convicted. The court rejected that claim too, stating constitutional obligations only require a reasonable investigation, not exhaustive exploration of Kohberger's entire life. Extensive work already has been done by the defense, including interviews with family, friends, teachers, employers, mental health experts, all the women that thought he was creepy, those folks. Additional investigative claims were considered speculative and lacked clear plans or timeframes. The court emphasized the mitigation team had already extensively covered numerous areas of Kohberger's history. The pretrial publicity issue with Kohberger highlighted extensive media coverage. NBC, Dateline, upcoming Amazon docuseries, and James Patterson's book would prejudice jurors. The court disagreed. They said the Sixth Amendment does not guarantee jurors know nothing about a case, only that they can be impartial despite any preconceived notions. And proper voir dire, jury questioning, can sufficiently mitigate publicity effects. Media attention around high-profile cases rarely diminishes over time. A continuance would only prolong the potentially endless coverage that this will continue to get, and potentially amplify the coverage as well. Some other issues were addressed. The leaks in the media. Kohberger argued that the trial should pause for investigation into the leaks. The court found this speculative, noting no guarantee leaks would ever be discovered or material enough to impact trial timeframes. And then the argument of the victim's rights. Idaho law guarantees timely disposition of cases for victims. Though federal constitutional rights prevail, timely resolution supports proceeding as scheduled. In the end, on this motion, Judge Stephen Hippler explicitly denied Kohberger's motion to continue, stating no constitutional or substantial rights prejudice was demonstrated by the defense to justify delaying the trial. So what it means going forward? Quite simply, the trial proceeds as originally scheduled. The defense is expected to rely heavily on the substantial investigative groundwork already completed. Voir dire processes will be crucial to ensure impartial jury selection given the media attention, and the defense must adjust their strategies without expecting more investigative or review time. Detailed breakdown covers the rationale behind the judge's decision and the highlights the substantial groundwork already laid out by Kohberger's defense. The court firmly viewed the continuance motion as unsupported by sufficient evidence or rationale to justify any further delays. There you go. Trial is planned. It is moved by just a few days, but like literally just a few days. I don't have that in front of me at this second, but that has occurred. But again, we're talking a few days, and it's more so nothing to do with the request. They just needed to do it. So that's there. And that's the latest on the filings that we've seen in the Kohberger case. These all came down here on the 26th of June of 2025, if you're looking back in history and trying to put the pieces together. There you go. In the comment section on YouTube, let me know what you think of this. Right choice, wrong choice. You tell me. There in the comments on YouTube. If you're not there already, just search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi and you'll find us. Hit subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this. We do greatly appreciate that. And if you want to get in on getting all of our videos on YouTube before everybody else and get in on commenting on everything first and giving your 2 cents before everybody else, you should then become a premium subscriber of ours at Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Just like I said, YouTube. Find it, and then you subscribe. You become the premium subscriber. You get all of that stuff well in advance as a thank you for your support, and it helps keep this program alive. So I do greatly appreciate that. Check that out on YouTube. And there's other cool things we're going to have as well. So until next time, I am Tony Bruschi. We will talk again real soon.
Want to stay on top of the latest true crime cases? Press subscribe now and never miss a breaking update from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.